Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. It's time to decide whether or not you have to hold a roster spot for some players who are off this week in fantasy. You may have to cut some of these. George and I will run through them. Some decisions I think are easier than others. Let's start off with Houston Texans CJ Stroud, who we just talked about as one of the bigger disappointments in fantasy this season. Stroud with just 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. Texans are off, George. They come back to play the Dolphins in 2 weeks. And I'm presuming the Dolphins are going to beat the Jets in some way, I think. I mean, although this rivalry, you never know. But if that ends up happening, Dolphins will need that game against Houston, and the Dolphins defense isn't that great. My gosh, I think I'm in a position where I may want to hold on to CJ Stroud.
You see, I'm going to disagree here. All right, I think I don't know who your quarterback is, so that also plays a part in this. All right, but the Miami Dolphins, 4th best in limiting fantasy points to quarterbacks. So wow. The defense may not be that great, but I guess they're not good against the run, because against the pass, they're pretty good. They only give up about 12 points, almost a little less than 13 points to quarterbacks, 4 points for a touchdown. All right, so I'm willing to move on from Stroud, assuming I can live with my other quarterback, which is going to be the major question here. You and I already talked about this. Stroud's been, not all that great here. He's been average at best. He's certainly not worth his draft position here. If you're worried about the week after, they play at Kansas City. That can be brutal weather there. Then, okay, you would like him for Baltimore in week 17, your finals here. But I'm saying I would probably drop Stroud if I could live with my other quarterback.
Yeah, you have to have somebody good. You can't be in a situation where you have Trevor Lawrence or, a quarterback, obviously that you don't know that's going to come back the rest of the season. This is pretty much an easy one, I think. Deontay Johnson of the Baltimore Ravens, who has been suspended by the Ravens for not wanting to get into a game. It seemed to me when the GM was talking about Deontay Johnson a couple of weeks ago, or I think it was the coordinator saying that we have really good receivers anyway, it felt like he was an insurance policy, George. Again, he'll end up somewhere else in the NFL next season, and he'll be a nice late round flyer. But for this season, it's time to drop Deontay Johnson. No reason to hold him.
Yeah, don't have much to add here. If you're holding on to Deontay Johnson, I guess you're a family member. All right, he's not playing. He's suspended. I mean, what are we hoping for here? What are we hoping for? They said that Baltimore's going to put him back in, or that everybody on the team gets food poisoning and he has to play? No, I'm moving on for Deontay Johnson. He's an easy drop.
Yeah. All right. Michael Pittman Jr. statistically is an easy drop. 46 receptions, 550 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's their number one target. Oh, this is a tough one, George. I'm borderline on this one. Yeah. I'm going to say drop, man. I'm going to say if you need to make the move, you got to drop this guy. Look, it's not comfortable, but when are these stats going to get better? I mean, 46 catches the whole year, 2 touchdowns the whole season. Drop.
I think you said the one thing that puts me on your side. All right. If I got to win this week, someone's got to go. That's the purpose of this. Someone's got to go, and Pittman is that guy I probably don't want to drop. But if I got to win this week, listen, week 15 doesn't matter for me if I lose this week. That's a scenario we're playing out here, right? I'll worry about week 15. Now, I'd probably drop him as late as I can to make sure no one else can get him. In case I wanted him next week, I can bid on him again, right? That's probably what I would do with any of these guys, unless I'm the guy I want to claim. I think is going to be claimed early, whatever. It depends on how your rules work here. But I think, I'm going to agree with you again. I would drop Pittman. I think he's the kind of guy we're sort of aiming for in this segment. A decent player, but somebody you may have to move on for, because I have to win now. I'll worry about next week.
Yeah, I think the rest of these players are all drops for me. I hate to ruin the show here. It's just true. Hunter Henry, tight end on the Patriots. I have Andrews, George. I picked up Juwan Johnson. I think there's 17 Juwan Johnsons out there for next week. I say cut Hunter Henry. I don't think anybody will pick him up.
Yeah, see, that's you make a joke there, but it's true. All right, Hunter Henry he's had a nice season. He's a dime a dozen. There's no way Hunter Henry. Oh, I can't drop Hunter Henry. He's not Brock Bowers. All right, almost any tight end. I mean, how many tight ends wouldn't you drop? All right, outside of Bowers, maybe not Kelsey. Maybe 2 others. All these other guys.
I'm not cutting Andrews. Andrews been much better.
He has been much, and you want to send him up to the surface of the sun about a month ago.
I did,
but he has been much better here.
That was my AI version.
Oh, it was a deep fake. I'm sorry, a deep fake. So I'm moving off. I'm moving off from most tight ends if I need to drop somebody.
Yeah, rare for me to say cut any running back in fantasy, but Austin Eckler of the Washington Commanders is on IR. So if you're lucky enough to get through this week, you can't even use him next week. you have to cut Austin Eckler. There's no reason to hang on, though. None.
Yeah, I mean, unless you have an IL slot, you can assume he comes back in he's out 4 weeks, so he's out, 3 more weeks? So you can assume he comes back in your finals and he's great? All right, so semifinal? No. He's going to come back and be the same player? No. All right, and you probably could. Yeah, you can just fight for it. I don't see anybody else claiming him. Listen, I guess the first place team that has a bye and has a dead spot could do that. But what makes you think he's going to come back and have his full complement of snaps? Or he's going to be fully healthy first week comes back from? No, gone.
One more, Justice, and then I have one I want to talk about on my own team. Justice Hill, running back of the Baltimore Ravens. I mean, I can be a little bit on the fence here. I will only say hold if you have Derrick Henry. Otherwise, he's a drop for me. That's it.
This one's a little tougher. It does fall into the category of Michael Pittman. If I need someone to start this week, he's got to go. He's on bye. Nothing I can do. But I don't want to drop him. I didn't want to drop Pittman either. They are useful players, even if they're just backups here. But if you have to win this week, he has to go. Even if I have Henry, he's got to go. Same thing. I need to win now. I can't take the chance. So I don't want to. But most of these players, I didn't mind at all here. But I don't want to drop Hill. But if I have to win this week, I can. He shouldn't determine whether or not I'm going to win a championship.
All right, so here we go. We've talked about this scenario for weeks, and we are upon the scenario that I have in front of you, George, here. Are you ready? So my team is, this is not the playoff round, but if I win and I beat the team I'm playing against and what other team loses, I get a bye, okay? So that means the number 1 seed in the league. I got to play for this week. So I have Kaimi Fairbairn on Houston. I looked at it. If I cut him, he would easily be picked up by somebody else, and he would be the most owned kicker in all of fantasy football to be cut. Thus far, I have chosen to hold Fairbairn, and I have to pick up another kicker for the week. Now, you, George, have stated that you, in general, and we mentioned Butker a few weeks ago, would cut a kicker to just pick up someone else and then maybe make the attempt to get somebody like Fairbairn again. So I'm going to tell you, here are the options for me that are out there. Wright on Kansas City. York on, what team is Cade York on? I can't even see. He's okay. And Cleveland, thank you. Young-Ho Koo in Atlanta. Ryland, Carlson. And that's it. That's it. They're both Carlsons. Daniel and Andrew. Both of them.
By the way, how many kickers do you start those are the only kickers that are left? Everybody has 2 kickers?
I don't know. I have to look. So anyway, are you cutting Fairbairn with potentially losing him next week? I am not.
It's funny. I mentioned in my home league, I'm in second place. The first place team is Fairbairn. And I get annoyed that every week the guy's 12, 13 points. He's
good,
week.
Man.
And it makes me mad. It does make me mad. With your options, I'm probably not. No, because all those guys suck. I mean, in most things, when I say that, by the way, there are 20 kickers available. You have 6, and one of them is your favorite guy, Carlson. By the way, you should have to claim Carlson. By the way,
what team is he even on? I don't even know.
Jets, right?
Is he on the Jets?
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. You have my word for this week. I will pick him up. And I will play him. But I'm not cutting Fairbairn. I'm going to have to cut somebody like possibly good. You know who I have to cut? I have to cut Blake Corum this week. I held him for 13 weeks.
Damn. I would definitely cut Corum before I cut Fairbairn.
He's going to be a fantasy star next week if I cut him this week. I know this is going to happen. I've seen this before. I've seen it. All right. Well, anyway, we got to take a timeout. We'll be right back with more after this.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFP to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards.
That was
so did Lincoln!
But he had that program was already going there!
Only on
Like it's holiday time, give us something positive. I mean, I guess we could try to find the positive here. I mean, Christian McCaffrey won a lot of leagues for people last season, and from a historical perspective, the last 5 years, because he only played a couple of games. The 49ers have been a shell of themselves. From a pass blocking perspective, I don't know about a run blocking perspective, but the guy who's been playing for him is actually really good. But look, we've seen this happen before in fantasy, and guys, their careers just end. Do you think this is the case, George, for McCaffrey? Do you think he's on the back nine? Is he like end career like LaDainian Tomlinson? Because this is like the best comp, I think, for anyone. Tomlinson had a few fantastic years, ended up, I think, finishing with the Jets, if I'm not mistaken. But it feels like McCaffrey's still too young for that, right? Like, I think he's probably got enough.
Like he's turning 29, tomorrow. I think he's got another good fantasy season or two. So if I had him in a dynasty league or a keeper league, I don't think I'd be running out the door trying to trade him. I think I still want. I think he's still lead your team to victory. Listen, do I ever think he's going to play 17 games again? Probably not. I also don't think this is going to happen again when you got totally screwed because he suffered the injury and played 3 games. So he looked good in that game against Buffalo. All right, San Francisco, they had the right game plan. They're going to run McCaffrey. Even Mason was running well before he got hurt, so he looked good. Just suffered the injury here. So, and they're saying one's not, the Achilles is not related to this. I don't know if I buy that, but I would hope that an entire offseason would allow him to be healthy again. That being said, as I said earlier, I'm not taking him in the first round. I think he'll go in the first round in leagues, but I'm not taking any running back in the first. I was about done with running backs in the first round. I want to take wide receivers, although I'm the first to admit, you and I talked about it. I took Tyreek Hill. That didn't work out for him. He's been okay at best. Some of that's because of Tua, but that's part of the risk we take there when we take a wide receiver early. But I wouldn't be against CMC. I think he'll be okay, but I'm not dying to grab him either because, hey, this is not the first injury he's had either. Right? We've gone through this before with him. You look at 2020, he only played 3 games, 21, 7 games. Then we went 3 straight years where he played a lot of games. Now this year, 4 games. So there is inherent risk with McCaffrey or really any running back.
Yeah, I mean, 10,000 total yards. I mean, 20 is a lock for the Hall of Fame. I mean, that's what it is. But for him to get there, he's got to continue to play for a long time at a high level. And I, again, I tried to make some comparisons there of players that played like him that were fantasy MVPs. Todd Gurley comes to mind too, and his career just sort of ended. There's been a lot. There's been Priest Holmes. I think maybe that's the best comparison. George Priest Holmes. Remember at his peak with Kansas City was really, really good for like 2 years, and then he kept getting hurt, and then Larry Johnson came in and he was amazing, and then he kept getting hurt. So unfortunately, track record, George, does sort of say that we've seen the best of McCaffrey. I'm sorry to say. Like, if you look historically of guys that have fallen off like this, they generally don't come back to be anywhere what they used to be. And I'm going to have to bank on that. I'm shocked that you think he's going to go in the first round. I don't think so.
I'm not in everything, but I think he will. I think there'll be some leagues, maybe not in industry leagues, but I think in home leagues he still will. He's the name. Once again, I'm assuming everything comes back positive, that he's healthy here. Because look, how many more running backs right now would you put ahead of him?
I know, that's the good question. That's a good question. Well, Breece Hall would be one. Breece Hall.
I need to see what's going on with the Jets before I put Breece Hall ahead of him. I'm sorry. I need to see what's going on.
Breece Hall's going to get drafted ahead of McCaffrey. We don't know who's going in the NFL. I mean, this kid Gentry on Boise State, I mean, he ends up in the right spot. He may go ahead of him too. Like, I think we haven't really determined what other running backs are coming into the NFL. Even if there's a running back that gets drafted in the second round in the NFL draft, they may move ahead of him. But I think we've sort of identified that. Would Devon A-Chain go ahead of him in fantasy drafts?
I'm going to say no, but he's a guy by this time next year, we may be like, why didn't we take a chain ahead of him? What are we doing? That sort of thing. I think he's coming up, right? He's really coming up here. But I wonder if Miami, by the way, if Miami doesn't, I wonder if that whole regime's going to get out, go bye-bye as well.
Yeah, I guess what we just accomplished is naming so many names that I just don't think it's possible that he's a first-round pick, because we named at least 3 or 4 running backs. You know that there's going to be at least 3 or 4 wide receivers. So if anything, he's a back-end one. Probably more toward second round, I think. But look, I mean, I would take him again. I would take that shot. I mean, we're still such a long way from figuring that out.
I don't know if
James Cook, Buffalo?
No, I don't. He's another guy's had a great year, but I don't think he goes quite. I think he's the top of that next tier.
Josh Jacobs?
Same thing, top of that next tier. I think he'll go in more on the number 10 overall, but I wouldn't do it. I would probably want him 14 to 16 range if he'd fall. That's where I'd feel more comfortable. After I got my Justin Jefferson in the first round, you get a top wide receiver, then I would grab CMC in the second round. I feel like I have some cover, right? I have a little cover here with a top wide receiver. I'd feel better about taking him then. Like I said, I don't think he's playing 17 games the next season, no matter what.
Yeah, I feel like we've had this conversation, you and I, not personally, but I feel like fantasy analysts have had this conversation before. And I don't think you ever want to take that guy that you're talking about in McCaffrey on the down. I mean, it seems to me that when the guy reaches that point where he's starting to slip, the best time to get off the train is now. We'll be back with more fantasy sports today. Don't go away.
She was recruited to Oregon partially by, guess who? Mark Campbell and Xavi Lopez. They know what they're doing. And I'm going to say this right now, folks. I'm going to say this right now. Mark Campbell's one of the 5 to 10 best coaches in women's college basketball right now.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid. Let's take a look at the AFC, look at the updated odds, and see if we can take a stab at this, see if we can figure out somebody that's not minus money to win the AFC. The Chiefs are the only ones that identify as minus money to be the number one seed in the AFC, followed by Buffalo, Pittsburgh, the Chargers, no thanks. Houston Texans are, very, very big long shots, 33-1. So it's Kansas City or Buffalo. Maybe Pittsburgh gets out. Where's Baltimore? I think I like Baltimore more than the Chargers and Texans.
The AFC, I like Buffalo right now as my number one team. That's not shocking to anybody, right? Kansas City is pulling stuff out of their behind, right? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's almost like when you watch the game now, all right, how are they going to win this one? Block field goal or pass interference. Oh, my God, they snapped it and hit the quarterback's chest. I mean, it's like, this doesn't happen. This is all movie endings here. Yet they're doing this week after week after week. I do think it ends this weekend, by the way, when maybe the Chargers put that to bed here and they beat the Chiefs. And Kansas City is going to be a little tough here, but I'll take the points on the Chargers this weekend. I don't want to bet against Pat Mahomes, Craig. I don't. Like I said, he's great and he does pull wins, and winning's the only thing that matters, right? Nothing else matters here but winning bowl games here, and he wins bowl games. But that being said, I think Buffalo's the better team here. Baltimore, I think they've got some, maybe my third place team here. They've got some issues here they have to figure out. Pittsburgh, it's funny. Pittsburgh in the AFC, Minnesota in the NFC. Probably not giving them enough love for what they've done this season. I just don't think they're as good as the other teams. I just don't. I just don't see that. Houston, I'm not, no. Chargers, I don't see them winning at all. Denver, fun with Bo Nix and nobody else going there. Buffalo, for me, is my number one team. I don't even know if Chiefs are number two. I think Baltimore still might be that number two team, but the last couple of weeks have not been pretty.
I mean, they still have Lamar Jackson, Like, I don't know. Like, I still feel like, the reason why Baltimore is down below some of these other teams and don't get talked about as much is because of this narrative that Lamar Jackson hasn't been able to get to the Super Bowl and he hasn't been able to get to the big game. But, I don't see it that way. I still think he is one of, if not the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And I still feel like eventually he's going to get there and eventually he's going to win one. Is there a sleeper team beyond that, though? Some people think, Denver, they could do some damage. I know you mentioned Bo Nix. I don't know. I don't see it that way. I think once Denver goes on the road anywhere, I don't see them winning big. The Chargers are good enough to win one playoff game. Are they good enough to win two? I don't think so. Houston's a disappointment. I guess to me, the race is Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore, and I'm never going to count out Pittsburgh because they are the kind of team that can win any way you give it to them. 13-10, 41-30. We saw that the other day. So that's it for me. I can't take a big long shot in the AFC. I just don't. NFC I'm going to, but AFC I don't see it.
I agree with you. I know the four teams you mentioned, I don't see any of them, anybody else. I mean, listen, it's a tournament. Could someone get hot? Sure. But those teams, I guess the team, by the way, would be Houston. If I was going to pick the long shot, maybe they figure things out. They had the bye week here. Stroud starts to play better. We just talked about Joe Mixon, how great he's been here. Nico Collins is back now. They can outscore people. I don't think the defense is going to get much better. All right, so like I said, they're going to have to outscore people, and that's tough to do, especially when you talk about offenses like Buffalo's, offenses like Baltimore's. They're going to score points anyway. So now you got to score in the 30s? Not so sure I see it. I like Bo Nix. He's fun, but I don't see Denver doing it. The Chargers, fully healthy. For me, it's like I said, I think Buffalo's in a tier of their own here. Then, like I said, Kansas City, Baltimore right now, I'll give the edge to Kansas City because of the record here. But I think Baltimore, if they were playing each other right now in a neutral field, I'd probably vote Baltimore.
All right, so let's take a look at the Super Bowl odds now. Odds to win it all. Detroit is the favorite at plus 320, followed by Philadelphia plus 480. My team's not even there, by the way. Buffalo 5-1, Kansas City 5.5-1, Baltimore, Green Bay, Minnesota, Pittsburgh, the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm still backing Washington, George. I'm still backing Washington. Call me crazy. I did it since the beginning of the season. I understand a scenario that Washington has to go to Detroit or Philadelphia in the championship game is formidable. It was formidable for the Bengals a couple of years ago, too. I'm just saying, I think Washington is that sleeper team that can go far. I think they can win several playoff games with Jaden Daniels in that offense. Now, do I think they're going to win the Super Bowl, George? No, but that is my long shot to go far.
All right, you say call you crazy. You are crazy. All right, it won't be Washington. Philadelphia. Philadelphia's going to the Super Bowl. Detroit,
Washington.
too many injuries on that defense here. It's Sirianni versus Campbell. Lord knows what they might do in this game.
Be right back.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circus Sports Million, Circus Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With two former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I'm going to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports Today. George and I reviewing every game in fantasy football. Let's get it started so we can get through them all. Jaguars and Titans going into this week. The Jacksonville Jaguars, to me, one of those teams I want nothing to do with, but the Tennessee Titans are another team that I feel the same way about. Not many options. Pollard is like a rock-solid RB1 in a week like this. There's no question about that. A lot of people are picking up Westbrook Ekine, whatever his name is, the wide receiver. Ekine. He's been fantastic. He's scoring touchdowns every single week. He's probably a must start this week. George, can you say anybody's a must start of the Jaguars?
There's no. I don't think there's anybody must start in this game. That being said, every game's important because of those 6 teams on bye. So you are taking a look at Travis Etienne and Ingram. Only 2 guys I'm really probably. I mean, I guess Brian Thomas as well, but it's Mac Jones. I don't know if I trust him. Ridley's been playing well of late. I'll have to go there. Pollard's almost certainly a must start. If you're going with Akine, by the way, and I've seen his name or heard his name pronounced 17 different ways, by the way. NWI is where I'll go with this. Keep in mind, he's touchdown deodorant. He's not a high reception guy. If he doesn't get that touchdown, he's 6 points, 3 catches, 30 yards. That's what he does. So keep that in mind here.
All right, Jets and Dolphins this week. I'm actually going to this game. I know it's a rarity for me to say I'm going to an NFL game, but I am. I'm going to the Dolphins and Jets on Sunday. I guess, yes, Tua is a must-start, George. You can keep trying Tyreek Hill, and you can keep trying Jalen Waddle. You're playing Devon Achane. You know who the most must-start player is in this game? You know how crazy this is going to sound, George? It's Jonnu Smith.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. Smith, I'm starting him over some named tight ends in a league or two because he's been that good here. Keep in mind, one thing we didn't talk about, because we were talking offensive players, not only is Breece Hall 50-50 to play, and that's probably being kind. I don't think he's going to play. So Sauce Gardner. He's probably not playing also. So keep that in mind. Yeah, I'm starting Hill. Definitely starting Hill. We're hoping for bigger and better things here. Waddle, you probably have to as well. A change a must. Smith is a must. Listen, Wilson and Adams, you probably have to. 6 teams on bye. I don't know if you can do better than that. Aaron Rodgers, I hope you don't have to. Unfortunately, in the league, I do.
That hurts. All right, Falcons and Vikings.
Yes.
A lot of points expected to come in this game between these two teams. I guess the question, George, is there a chance the Falcons in a playoff hunt would bench Kirk Cousins after his performance last week? I know, some people are calling for Michael Penix Jr. I highly doubt that. I think it's going to be the Cousins show. I got this, George, as an all-hands-on-deck game. I know Minnesota's defense has been fantastic, but eventually they're going to give up 3 touchdowns in a game. I wonder if this is the one this week.
I doubt it. Cousins looks terrible. He looks awfully, awfully bad here. I think next week on this show, Craig, we are talking about Penix. All right, I think Cousins is going to have a bad game here, and I think they're not going to have a choice. He was awful against the Chargers. That was terrible, that performance, and not the first time we've seen that this season. They got crushed by Denver. They might have no choice if he has another stinker in this game. That being said, you're still starting London. You're still starting Mooney here. You're still starting Bijan Robinson. Probably nobody else. I don't want to start Cousins. I'm certainly not starting Kyle Pitts, who had a big 0 last week. For Minnesota, yeah, everybody goes. If you have somebody on Minnesota and you're not starting him this week, probably shouldn't have him. With those 6 teams on bar, you're playing a terrible defense. Everybody on Minnesota goes.
All right, we got the Saints and Giants. I dare you to start a lot of players in this game. Malik Neighbors is questionable going into the week. He hurt himself in practice, so there goes the Giants. I guess Tyrone Tracy, if you have to. Not Devin Singletary, that's for sure. As far as the Saints are concerned, fire up Alvin Kamara. And then who else? Taysom Hill out for the season. Olave has been hurt. George, you got any Saints options for me?
Well, you said it earlier. All right, the one guy you missing,
Juwan Johnson.
Tight end, Juwan Johnson. That could be the only other guy I got here for you. Kamara goes. Neighbors probably goes. It's Drew Lock starting. Good luck to you. Tracy goes, sure, but it's Juwan Johnson be the only other guy I got for you.
Panthers and Eagles. This is where I was talking about streaming that Eagles defense. I think they got a great matchup here. Carolina, by the way, George, playing a little bit better. Like, dare I say, maybe you do play Bryce Young. Maybe you do play Adam Thielen. I like what I've seen from Carolina. Maybe this will go into next year. And Chuba Hubbard, could you play 3 Panthers in this game? I know everyone's waiting. What about the Eagles? You play everybody on the Eagles. Great offensive team.
Yeah, Devonta Smith is playing this week, so you're another guy you consider playing for the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe no Goddard. At least I don't think Goddard's going to play. He's week to week. Hasn't practiced all week. I don't think he plays. I'll be surprised. Everything you said about Carolina is true. They are playing better. Maybe Bryce Young is their quarterback of the future. I hope he is here. That being said, I'm not starting him this week. I'm not starting Thielen. That Philadelphia secondary is legit here. I don't think they're going to do much damage. Hubbard probably has to go. Once again, if you've got 2 better running backs than Hubbard, God bless you.
No way.
And maybe you do. You could have it.
No.
Once Hubbard wasn't really thought of. He was an afterthought draft time, so he could be a running back
He's so
for your
good.
team.
No, he's a great starter.
Fumbled last week, cost him the game.
Yeah.
Hold on to that ball, young man.
Young man. All right, Browns Steelers. What do you do here, George? This is a good question. I know. Let's start with Pittsburgh. Russell Wilson, boy, I was wrong about him. He threw for 400 yards last week. He was fantastic. Pickens is getting more usage. Najee Harris looks a lot better. Now let's go over to Cleveland, where the number 1 wide receiver in fantasy football, his name is Jerry Jeudy all of a sudden. And Jameis Winston, he's fun to watch. I mean, in any format, the game that he had last week was fantastic. But, if you play in a league where you're only getting 4 points for a touchdown and -2 for an interception, I don't think you're playing Winston. But beyond that, I guess. I mean, I'm really worried, though, that this could be a complete fall down to earth in Pittsburgh. This is a really tough matchup.
Yeah, and the league you're talking about, by the way, 4 points for a touchdown, -2 for an interception, you can't start Winston. You just can't. This is not going to be the Denver game where he's going to score, throw for 4 touchdowns. That's not going to happen. He might throw for 2. Wouldn't shock me here, but he's also going to throw for a pick or 2 as well here. So it's certainly not worth it in that kind of league here. Judy goes. Njoku goes here. Elijah Moore, once again, you have to be desperate here, but he's a guy who could go as well here if you're stuck. Cedric Tillman's not going to play here, so you're okay not starting him. I don't want to start either running back, Chubb, or Ford. All right, I mean, once again, you'll need touchdown deodorant to get anything off here. Pittsburgh, Russell Wilson's a definite start for me. Fountain of youth here, or playing in Pittsburgh has worked. It's a good trade, right? It's worked out well for Denver and Pittsburgh, whatever. So it's worked out there. George Pickens goes. Freiermuth likely goes. We named a whole bunch of tight ends that are out too, so he probably goes for you. And, of course, so does Najee Harris.
Okay, Raiders and Buccaneers. The Buccaneers are very clear, as Baker Mayfield still is a good start. Bucky Irving has been one of the best running backs in fantasy football, so you're starting him too. And then the Bucs wide receivers is really what you got to figure out. But, George, let's talk about the Raiders here. Aiden O'Connell has been throwing to Jacoby Myers a lot. I mean, Myers, with everybody off, is a definite start this week. What about the Raiders running back situation? Last week, they went with Amir Abdullah and what's his last name? Sincere, I know is his first name. McCormick. Sincere McCormick. George, I picked up Sincere McCormick. I picked him up. I may have to play him this week. If both Madison and Zamir White are out again, George, I think McCormick is a start.
It's amazing what we have to do late in fantasy seasons. I mentioned I'm looking for Jerome Ford, and I might be happy to get him. I was upset that someone outbid me for Mac Jones. It's what we got to do in fantasy, so I'm certainly not making fun here. Zamir White's out. Madison's questionable here. Abdullah's the guy you want, but he's probably long gone for a couple of weeks now.
I don't know. Abdullah did not look good. I don't know.
Oh, they're all terrible.
I think it's McCormick. I think it's Sincere McCormick. All right, Seahawks and Cardinals. Kenneth Walker's questionable, so Zach Charbonnet, pick him up, start him. Geno Smith. I think it would have to be a 2-quarterback league for Geno Smith, but clearly you're starting Metcalf. Arizona's offense, George, has gone in the you-know-whatter. It has not been good. McBride has been awesome. Connor's still very good, but beyond that, you're rolling a little dice here.
Kyler Murray hasn't played well. He's making poor decisions of late here. Trey McBride's a must here. I mean, Harrison probably has to go for you. JSN for Seattle, been fantastic. He's been the number one receiver there, well over DK Metcalf. And we're all hoping, for the love of God, Kenneth Walker, please play.
All right, we'll take a quick timeout on fantasy sports today. We'll recap Bears, 49ers, Bills, Rams, Chargers, Chiefs, and then get into our daily fantasy schedule. You're watching Fantasy Sports Today here on SportsGrid, and we'll be back as we get you ready for the upcoming week right after this.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
There is going to be an energy to game time decisions that you will feel night in and night out. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. I want this to be the place that people come to. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than game time decisions. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
All right, we got it. Here we go. Here we go, guys. You ready? You ready for my bold prediction here on the show? What's my record on the show picking games on the air, George? What's my record?
0-13?
Oh, come on. What is my record? Sam, what is my record here on the show picking games?
Straight up? We took it straight up with the spread
I picked
here.
one game all year. That's it. One game. No, one game all year. I told you the Saints were going to beat the Falcons, right? When they fired Rizzi, okay? Here's game number 2 of the season. The Chicago Bears going into San Francisco with Thomas Brown, their new head coach. New life. Bears are going to play great. Bears are going to cover, maybe win. Bears are going to be the play for me this week. I love this matchup. Now, I don't like the fact that all their running backs are hurt, George, but I'll say it before and I'll say it again. Chicago has come up so short on some of these games that they should have won. The 49ers, by the way, are probably, I know this is going to sound insane, their record is not indicative of who they are. It should be worse. They played horrible all season long. Yes, for the 49ers, I'm going to start Brock Purdy, and I'm going to probably hope that Debo, breaks out, does something, and this guy Garendo. But I like the Bears here, George. I think the Bears are going to go to San Francisco, and I think they're going to play for that coach. I think they're going to say it was this guy Berthelus that couldn't do squat. I think they're going to win.
I don't have much pushback here. I certainly wouldn't be shocked if Chicago wins. I probably will rather take them straight. I was just taking with the points here.
Right.
And if you're going to play a teaser, I would certainly tease them up and take the whatever it is, 10, 11 points there. I think they'll cover that. Too many injuries for San Fran, right? That's their biggest problem here. That being said, I'm starting Purdy as well. Garendo, listen, you spent all your fab on him, so of course you're starting him here. It's funny, Craig. I almost feel better about Jennings than I do about Debo. You likely have to start Debo. You don't have a choice, right? I almost would rather start Jennings here. Kittle goes, of course, here. Chicago, you're going to want to check to make sure that Swift plays, to make sure that DJ Moore plays. I think they both do, but you're going to want to make sure Caleb goes. Cole Kmet, you probably have to, but if you don't, I'd probably rather have the other tight end on your roster.
All right, Bills, one of the best offenses in fantasy, so Josh Allen, we don't need you to tell you to start him. You're starting him this week. But, George, the rest of the offense beyond Cook, a little bit shaky. As far as the Rams are concerned, Kyron Williams, A+, must start as an RB1, both receivers, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. A lot of people like the Rams this week, I'm noticing. How about you, George? You think that this is that spot that Buffalo finally falters?
Yeah, the thing was Buffalo, you had the big game last week. You destroyed San Fran, and then you got the huge game next Sunday afternoon against Detroit, right? So, sort of a trap game, right? That's what we're hoping for here. Maybe. I don't know if I'm betting against Buffalo. They are still trying to catch Kansas City, all right, for that number 1 seed. I think that still motivates them there. Allen goes here. Cook goes. Kincaid, by the way, and Coleman are both questionable. So we'll see if they're going to play. We'll find out more about 2:45 Eastern tomorrow. So we'll find out about that. Shakir probably starts for me as well, by the way. And of course, Kupp, Nacua. Stafford, you probably have to, Craig. With all those quarterbacks out here, you probably have to start Stafford.
All right, finally, Chargers and Chiefs. Let's get to this game before we get to our buy or sell DFS. The Chiefs, clearly at this point, the better team, but the Chargers have really had a nice season, George. Justin Herbert in the 12-team league, maybe not a start, but beyond that, yes. They've had some really good contributions from the wide receiver position. Gus Edwards is a start, and I would be, silly to go over all the Chiefs. You know who they are by now, I think.
Yeah, I would hope so. All right, listen, Herbert. Up and down, I would think about it. Gus Edwards, you probably have to here. Will Dissly, he's a guy we could talk about. Dissly's the kind of guy I probably am going to start him this week. I think they're going to have to throw the football here somewhat. Lad McConkey, by the way, fantastic. He definitely goes for you. I'm not starting Josh Palmer going anywhere further down that. Kansas City, it's the normal characters here. I would rather start Pacheco than Hunt. If I had to choose between the two of them, Pacheco than Hunt. He took over the role last week. Kelsey goes. Noah Gray. I mean, he was a hot guy for a while, Craig. I think that's calmed down, by the way, but he was the hot guy for a bit.
Yeah. All right. So there goes. Every game in fantasy football. We just previewed them all. If you missed it, just hit that rewind button. You can watch it again. Time now to play a little buy or sell in daily fantasy. Speaking of the San Francisco 49ers, Brock Purdy at home against the Chicago Bears. He's 6,200. I already told you my opinion here. I think the Bears go to San Francisco and put an end to the 49ers season. As if it wasn't over already, I think it ends here. I do think the 49ers, when they're out of it, are actually, George, going to play a little bit better. I think they'll play a little bit freer. Maybe Garendo rushes for like 200 yards. You know how that is at the end of the year when teams don't care. Like good teams that end up bad, just at the end play well. That's what I see for San Francisco. I don't like Purdy this week, though. I'm selling at 6,200.
Yeah, I'm not paying. That's the number 5 quarterback on the roster. I like Sam Darnold a little less, 6,100 here. How about Russell Wilson, 59? Did we not see what Bo Nix did to Cleveland? All right, I think the same thing is very similar is going to happen here. So this is a sell for me as well. I'm not paying that price for Brock Purdy.
All right. Najee Harris has run the ball very well for the Pittsburgh Steelers. His counterpart, Jalen Warren, 5,500 this week for the Steelers. George, buy or sell?
5,500 means you're looking at your running back 2, which I don't mind here. Once again, I do think Pittsburgh's going to score some points here. So I don't mind it. He's your running back 2, not your running back 1. Not unless you're going bananas for your wide receivers or you're paying up top end. But did we just say Garendo, 5,400 here? I'd rather go there. I'd easily rather go there. And if I'm going to go back up running backs, by the way, well, you and I both don't think Breece Hall is going to play. Braylon Allen is 5,000.
Yep.
All right, so he's the starting running back then for the Jets. And like I said, Craig and I, neither one of us thinks that Hall plays here. So I'd rather go Allen.
Yeah, Allen's going to be used a lot. So tournaments are going to have to go another direction. All right, you heard the R word recently with Keenan Allen, that retirement word. You think that happens, George, at the end of the year? 5,600 coming off a really good game for the Chicago Bears. It hasn't been a good season for him, though.
No, he did have a good Thanksgiving, had a monster game there, but to rely on it back-to-back games, San Fran's not that kind of defense, so maybe it is. But I'm not going to spend that money for him either here. Once again, running backs, wide receivers that are cheaper. You go Darnell Mooney, 5,500. Jordan Addison's been hot. I said that defense for Atlanta is non-existent. 5,300. I'd rather have him as well here. And then Juwan Jennings, 52. But I would go Addison above all those guys.
All right, finally, tight end Kyle Pitts of the Atlanta Falcons. George, boy, with the way Cousins is playing, I'm going to sell this.
Yeah, he had a 0 last week. This one's easy. No, thank you.
We'll be back to wrap it all up when we return with the Sports Grid 60. So stay with us here on the grid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
The sharpest football contest show in the land, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show, focuses on Circa Sports Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate Super Contest, handicapping the games and releasing our contest picks every week of the season. With 2 former Super Contest winners, Brady Cannon and James Salinas, a former NFL player, Mike Pritchard, and over $1 million in contest prize money won combined, the Las Vegas Football Contest Show will have you prepared this season like none other.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason then to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Fantasy Sports today here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish along with George Kurtz. All right, George. So bottom line here is we've got a great schedule coming up later today here on SportsGrid. And make sure you stay tuned because we've got all of the great action in college football here, 9 a.m. Eastern. You got Kevin Walsh, Joe Lisi, they're all set. They're ready to go. Ben Stevens, ready for the Big Ten Championship, Big 12, SEC, ACC, 12 o'clock Eastern. It's in-game live game day. Joe Ranieri and Cam Stewart, 4 o'clock Eastern. Scott Wetzel and Joe Madden, and then the nightcap with the final games in college football of the season in the, I guess you call it the regular season championship. I think that's fair. Adam Kaufman and Brady Cannon as well. So, George, how many leagues you got playoffs going on this week? Do you have any? I have one league starting playoffs and one the final week of the regular season.
Most are final week of the regular season. So I'm in 9 leagues. I would say 6 are, without looking at, I think 6 are regular season, 3 are playoffs. And I'm still alive in each one of them. I take it back. I am not. Finished 8-5 and didn't make the playoffs. So I'm not happy about that.
Wow.
But them's the breaks. The final team gets in by total points, which I agree with, by the way. I like that setup, by the way, where the final team gets in. The one team that wouldn't have made the playoffs but has the most points, that team that sort of got screwed all year long. So I agree with that setup, but that did cost me a spot. What are you going to do?
Yeah. I have one league that I'm playing in the playoffs. And as I mentioned earlier in the show, if I win and something else happens, I can get a bye for next week. But if I lose, then I'm forced to be, I think, the 3 seed, and then I would have to play next week in the fantasy. So regardless, I'm doing this. But I got to tell you, my fantasy football weekend is not going to quit. I'm going to need to follow all of the injury reports this weekend. And again, don't forget, folks, Sunday morning, exclusively here on SportsGrid, you're going to have Joe Pisapia, Matt Stryker. They're going to help you out Sunday morning and get you ready for all of the Sunday games. All right, without further ado, let's get ready to wrap up this edition of Fantasy Sports Today. It's time now for the SportsGrid 60.
Now, I think most people know here. Listen, we love football. That's obvious. But what I'm going to talk about today is baseball. Now, baseball has always been my first love for many reasons. Mainly has to do with my father. The only thing he and I agreed upon were the New York Yankees. And so baseball is more romantic to me than football is. Now, a lot of the rule changes that have come about from Rob Manfred, I like the pitch clock. I do. I think it's a little too quick. I would like it to be maybe 3 seconds higher for each, more than 15 seconds. I think it's a little quick here, but I do like the pitch clock. I don't want these pitchers taking a minute and a half before they throw the ball. I would probably rather see, maybe 3 throws to first base, not 2, but I can live with 2. The bigger bases, whatever. Banning the shift, I dislike immensely here. I think, once again, learn to hit the ball the other way. Aren't you a professional batter? It shouldn't be that hard here. Bunt, and that shift will go away real quick. I hate the ghost runner. All right. That's just, I can't stand that. But this new golden at bat rule, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Oh, we're just bastardizing the game. That's all we're doing is bastardizing the game if this comes in here. What are you going to give Aaron Judge 60 more at bats a year? They lose 60 times. He'd get up 60 more times. And what are you going to do about the home runs? If he hits 60 at bats, he hits a home run about 1 every 12 at bats. That's 5 home runs. What if he hits 64 home runs next year? Did he break his own record? Or are we going to put an asterisk because no, it's only 59? So it's just idiotic in my mind. I really hope this is just out there to get some publicity, which I think is kind of idiotic in itself here. But if they're seriously thinking about doing this, and I said, Craig, I'm never going to tell you I won't watch baseball because that's not true. I love the game. Always going to watch. All right, but you're bastardizing it. You're just making it silly. No shift. Oh, we have a ghost runner here because no one wants to stay late. And now we're going to put a golden at bat to make, we want more drama here. So we're going to manufacture drama. Terrible idea.
I think sometimes they put it out like a trial balloon to see what people think and see what people are commenting on and then decide to do it. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I look at the calendar here, we're less than 2 months away from turning the show back over to fantasy baseball. I'm pretty sure that we're almost there. Yeah, less than 2 months. So exciting times as we get back to baseball season. All right. So as we wrap up the show, the one thing that I want to add for those of you who are getting ready for the fantasy football playoffs, if you haven't done this already, you have to have a team make the playoffs based on the most amount of points that is scored in your league. Fantasy football is more about luck than it is about skill. I don't care what anybody says. If you're doing a league where the team that scored the most points didn't make the playoffs because of some bad luck, then you're not doing it right. Get that fixed for next year. That'll do it for the show. For George Kurtz and for our producer, Sam, I'm Craig Mish. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. We'll see you back here for the playoff edition of fantasy football on Fantasy Sports Today next week. Have a great one.
He also said that the Bears head coaching opening would be the most coveted job after the season.
They'll let that guy stay. I heard today that they were very worried about screwing up Caleb Williams, so that he likes this guy Brown so much that they may let him stay as the head coach. What a disaster that'll turn into.
Pharrell Coast to Coast, only on SportsGrid.
We got the NBA Cup going on. Not that anybody really cares per se about the NBA Cup. Now, I got to be honest with you. I actually did try to look of like, okay, like what does it mean like for the NBA Cup? Like who's playing for what here? And I lost interest and I gave up after about 30 seconds. And I was like, you know what? Whatever, dude. There's NBA games.
Sports Rage tonight, only on SportsGrid.
OU is definitely better than Syracuse. Miami's lost by 4 and by 5. But that offense is so good.
Right.
You cannot run away from them.
But the perception is, if we're talking about those two teams, Oklahoma's just this blue blood program, and Syracuse and Georgia Tech are not.
Right.
So that's why we give you a reason to keep out Miami from the playoff.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
It's a new era in CFP to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was
Tony Lincoln!
But he had that program was already going there.